this is my Throttle STI. I won this from their giveaway. Throttle on YouTube. Car ran fine for about a month and a half. Then a small ticking started happening, and the ticking was coming from the driver's side head over here. I've looked into it a couple of times, did coil packs, spark plugs. Just is about all I can do before actually pulling the engine. After that, the car started to overheat. So once that started, I figured I'd take it to a shop, so I did. And they diagnosed that the head gasket was actually leaking. So the head gasket, they said, was leaking from the driver's side and the passenger side. So we're going to end up pulling the motor. We're going to be doing, I have a full gasket kit on the way. So we're going to end up doing whatever gaskets we can. And then we're also going to be pulling all of this off, front mount intercooler, all this engine dress up, strut tower braze, battery, radiator. We already drained the oil in the car, just to make things easier for now. We're going to start by draining the coolant. And after we drain the coolant, we're going to remove this front bumper, just to make things easier. We're also going to remove the headlights. And then we'll get down to the motor. Now, Throttle built this car, but Throttle did not touch the motor. So the motor was built or rebuilt by a shop up that way. I have the paperwork, but I haven't really looked into it. It's pretty confusing. But basically, the guy who owned this car before me had done a turbo upgrade. Apparently he had ARP head studs in the car, which I'm assuming were transferred onto this car, according to the paperwork, or at least this motor. But we'll see. So we're going to tear the engine open, and I'm interested to see if there's actually anything in the engine, because this is supposed to be a stock block, but it could be forged internals. It couldn't be forged internals. I just don't know. So we're going to do that. We're also going to check our valve buckets, or tappets, whatever you want to call them. Check the clearance on that, just to see if that's where that ticking is coming from. Then at some point we're going to end up raising this hood, because as you can see, it's not going up any higher. So we're going to try to move these two bolts right here down to these two holes and see if that'll give us enough angle so we can get a engine lift in here and get that out. And if not, then we'll probably end up taking the hood off, which is not what we want to do, because realigning the hood, put back on it's not the funnest job. But yeah, we're going to do that and we'll show you how it goes. Let's get started. Alright, so we're going to take the front bumper off. Front bumper is pretty simple. Got these push pins on top, these 4. And then once we get to the body kit, these 2 have a metal plate in between, separating them. So we have to remove those 2. We can leave these all attached. Then inside the fender well, we have 2 push pins inside of here, right there. And then there would be one here, but I've already taken that one out. Then the bumper should come off. And then once we get the bumper off, we're going to remove the headlights, which is pretty simple. There's a bolt here, there's a bolt here, and under the bumper there should be 2 more bolts. Same thing on the other side. So we'll have the whole bumper out, the headlights out by the next time we start the video. Alright, so here's the headlights. Bam. So the problem with these headlights was water was getting in somehow. On the back here, you can see all this silicone. That was me. I did that. So if you can see here, this grommet right here is where the water was getting in. right here. The grommet, the wires are actually tucked behind the grommet. So it was making a gap on each side because the wires were tucked behind the grommet and water was getting in right there. And once water got in right there, this is the headlight, directly at the bottom is the HID module. So I had to take these bolts out, pull the HID module off, open up the HID module by taking these bolts off, and then these star bolts, because the headlight, the HID driving lights, they actually kept going out. So I opened that up and I had to spray some CRC electrical cleaner in there to dry that completely up. And I did that about 2 times, taking the bumper off, taking the headlights out, and cleaning these, because it had to pass inspection with basically a headlight out. So I had to have that fixed so it could pass inspection. So after I realized it was actually this itself, then I decided to seal up the whole headlight, and it's been fine ever since. The only problem is over time, this silicone down here is probably gonna crack, and you can already see there's a little hole forming right there on the other side of him, but it'll hold for now. Besides, I want to get new headlights for this car, so these will probably end up going back on, but temporarily. So we're gonna set this in our pile. We got our radiator shroud off, so that's good. Coolant is draining, and it'll probably be draining for a little bit. So now we're gonna end up taking all the intercooler piping off, intake, all the engine dress up, the strut tower brace. We're gonna disconnect a few hoses so we can just get all the intercooler piping off, such as ball valve. And after we get all those off, we can get around to the battery, and that is when we will come back to you guys. So, see you soon. Alright, so we went ahead and loosened the crank pulley bolt. So we had one of these breaker bar. This guy was holding it in place. If you want to see, it goes just like this. Holds it in place. Breaker bar goes in the middle. Loosen that bolt up. We did that off camera so we didn't look like complete idiots. So you're welcome. Next off is going to be the coolant reservoir. We try to mark these guys so with some symbols, just so we have an idea of how they're going back. So we're going to take these guys off. We're going to end up taking these 2 off back here, just the hoses themselves, because they're going to come out with the motor. That's the catch can kit. We're going to take this fuel system apart, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do with these guys, because they are some very odd connectors. Throttle body will be coming off. We will also be taking the AC belt, power steering belt. We'll take that one off, and then we'll be taking the stretch belt off as well. And then after that, we'll be taking out the intake manifold, which is going to be the fun part. And after that, we'll come back to you guys with an update. So I believe we have found the ticking issue. This is a gasket. This gasket belongs right there. As you can see from all the silt, that's exhaust gases from the EGR. Even down here, exhaust gases just everywhere. There's no bolts holding this in whatsoever, and this was just dangling there. So, ticking noise, I believe we have figured out. So, that's where we're at, and the engine is about to come out.
So Luke wanted me to go to the garage or the shed, try and find something to help split the block. He said he was working on something, but wasn't entirely sure how he was going to do it. But did you get it?
We can cut this part out.